Hi, I'm Emily Weiss. I work for Accenture and I lead our global travel industry practice.
Hi, my name is Jesko Neuenburg and I lead the global travel and aviation sustainability team within Accenture.
So firstly, Emily, how have traveller expectations changed in the past 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it's a great question because I talk about expectations have increased significantly, so much so that I start to sometimes call them demands. They're not exactly even expectations anymore, but there's a significant expectation or, like I said, demand for more personalization. So really know me, know my needs, know my interests, know my experiences, know what it is that I've done, and therefore what it is that I may want, or even anticipating my needs.
And once companies understand these expectations or demands, how are travel companies responding to them?
Yeah, so there's a significant shift towards leveraging data and information, as we just talked about the traveler. All the way, I often say the end-to-end traveler experience. So it's all the way from the inspiration phase of saying, I know what you may want, I am going to market towards you differently, I'm going to advertise towards you differently, I'm going to help you with your booking differently. So I'm going to create, whether it be travel companions or automated processes so I can create itineraries for you, or all the way through, again, the booking. There's just such a significant amount of options out there. So are there ways that I can streamline that process to allow the process to be much more fluid? And we've seen that there's been a significant abandonment of shopping. I think it was up to 80% at one point because the options are so great and there's an overwhelm from the travelers. And then all the way through to the servicing side. So with disruption management and being much more responsive and being able to provide solutions in a much more agile and rapid way.
Absolutely, and you started to touch on it a little bit, but could you provide a little more insight on how what you would describe the sort of chief sources of friction and frustration for customers, and what are they demanding to see in terms of response to this?
Yeah, so the demands are everything from a more rapid response, more clarity around processes, more clarity around policies. So a great example is, I remember during the pandemic, particularly in the US, there was this big focus on cancellation and refunds, and what does that mean? Even so far as, I remember a client calling me and actually saying, the biggest question we're asking right now is, why is it so much easier to cancel my dinner or change my dinner reservation than it is to change my flight? So that's been one of the big, challenges that we see our clients and travel companies tackling quite a bit.
Absolutely, I can very well imagine. And Jesko, if we think about sustainability now, we're seeing the landscape evolve in many ways, but sustainability is really gaining momentum. What are the key steps that we need to take to help accelerate the adoption of sustainable travel offerings?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things the industry can do. Some of the challenges at the moment are to do with the supply chain. For example, aircraft by the manufacturers are delayed in terms of being delivered, or the ramp up of sustainable aviation fuel is taking longer than maybe anticipated. So working together with those supply chain partners to overcome some of those barriers is certainly important. As a second thing, I would say the product design by the airlines can improve to where it's more about sustainability by default rather than an opt-in sustainability offering. So having it really part of your core product would make it more appealing to customers. And then it's also about customer education, so making sure customers clearly understand, for example, the carbon footprint of the product they're buying, and ultimately also know what kind of behavioral change would help to also mitigate the impact of the industry. And finally, I think there's a point about shared learning. So there is so many good initiatives across the industry. Figuring out what works and then scaling those things up is really critical.
Fantastic. And one of the things we've been seeing is that sometimes there can be a disparity between what customers say they're going to do in these surveys and how they translate into actions. How can travel companies, first of all, is this something you're seeing, and also how can travel companies respond to this?
Yeah, I think it's something that our research also shows. So we've seen from our research, 87% of travelers have actually said that they have increased their sustainable kind of travel bookings over the last year. So there's been a strong kind of increase in that. But of course, there is this say-do gap. So when it comes to paying for it, typically the willingness to pay is relatively limited. It works very well where there isn't much of a price differential. So if you look at offerings like Uber Green, for example, which comes at no extra cost, that has been phenomenally successful in a sense. For some of the things that are quite expensive, such as take-up of SAF in aviation, for example, there it's a much harder sell to convince customers. But also there, I think in the corporate market, we're seeing some good traction with corporates coming on board with corporate SAF programs. And so there is also kind of positive stories there to be had.
Fantastic. Thank you for elaborating on that. And thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.